Right now, my signature program, Scribble School, is open for enrollment, but not for long. This is the robust program that will take you from knowing nothing or a little bit about hieroglyphs to reading the common text you're going to actually see in museums, online, and on trips to Egypt. And there's a very special bonus available right now for the first 25 people who sign up by Friday, May 15th. They'll get the special bonus Hieroglyph a Day planner. This planner is not available anywhere else. It's not sold separately. This is the only way to get it. So you'll want to check out all the details and grab your spot in Scribble School at scribbleschool.com. Welcome to Voices of Ancient Egypt, the podcast for people who don't just want to learn about ancient Egypt, but want to understand it on a deeper, more meaningful level. I'm Melinda Nelsonhurst, an Egyptologist with a Ph.D. in the field and years of experience teaching at the university level, working in Egypt, and training students around the world to read real ancient Egyptian texts. I've spent decades studying this civilization in a traditional academic setting so you don't have to, and so you can access knowledge that's usually locked behind academic walls. This podcast brings ancient Egyptian history, beliefs, and language to life, and shows you that learning hieroglyphs is possible, no matter your age, background, or schedule. So whether you want to read hieroglyphs in museums, on social media, or on your next trip to Egypt, you'll find the tools, stories, and encouragement to make it real right here. Let's hear the voices of the ancient world together. Hello, and welcome to the Voices of Ancient Egypt podcast. In this episode, we'll be featuring an interview with one of my students. This is part of a series I'm calling What's Working with Learning Hieroglyphs, where I interview students of mine to find out what strategies and tactics they're using to make tons of progress with hieroglyphs. These are real people with busy lives, commitments, and also a whole lot of unexpected challenges in life. And we're going to get down in the trenches with them and hear how they've been able to learn to read everything from common pharaohs' names to literature, letters, medical texts, and even the Book of the Dead. Let's jump in and hear what's really working for these real people. I've got Bob here with me today, who's one of my students who's been learning hieroglyphs with me for a while. And thank you so much for joining me, Bob.
You're welcome.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, just a little bit about you and what brought you to wanting to learn hieroglyphs?
Well, my name's Bob Mathas. I'm retired. What brought me wanting to learn about hieroglyphs was I was going to take a trip to Egypt. And that was about 3 years ago. And somehow, just by luck, I started, as I was doing research online, I ran across that you really can learn about hieroglyphs or learn hieroglyphs online. You don't have to go to a college or get a bunch of books, although I have a bunch of books anyway. And so I started, and it was very helpful. I could recognize some hieroglyphic key symbols, and it just made the trip much more interesting.
I love that. Yeah, it really can change visits to Egypt or visits to museums. I know we'll probably talk about that a little bit more because I know you've been to some museums since then also. So we have been working together for a while. Like you mentioned, it was a few years ago when you were headed to Egypt. And I think at that time you found Scribble School, my foundational program, and then went on your trip. And then when I started Master Scribes about 2 years ago, you joined from the very beginning also and have been with us ever since, I believe.
Yes.
So I'd love you to take me back to, you mentioned already learning some of the basics, like with Scribble School and taking that on your trip, but I'd love to rewind to sort of where you were after that, maybe after your trip, and when you were maybe thinking about going deeper with learning hieroglyphs, and what sort of obstacles did you run into or problems that you maybe wanted to solve with joining Master Scribes?
Boy, I think it was just mostly practice and getting experience with other kinds of texts. I mean, one of the first ones we did probably in Scribble School was the I can't even come up with it now. The offering, an offering,
Mm-hmm.
and you see that in different places, but it was more of a try to figure out just more than just the formulaic things that you're going to see.
I see. So with Matt, you were looking to go a bit deeper and get into things that were maybe not the things that are super formulaic, like the offering formula that you mentioned, that you can see in a lot of places, but you wanted to get into some other types of Egyptian texts too. And like you said, get a lot of practice with them in master scribes. So how do you feel like looking back, if you think about sort of where you were then versus now, like you paint a picture of sort of what's changed compared to, as you were thinking about, oh, I want to read some other things, and compared to where you are now that you've been in master scribes for a while?
Well, I feel a lot more confident being able to, as you mentioned, I go to anywhere I go now, I go to the museum and I go to the Egyptian part of the museum, even if it's in Dublin where they have just one little room. And I take a bunch of pictures and go back and try and figure out what's there. I feel a lot more confident being able to take something and research it, look it up, and sort of get a feel for what it says. I may not have all the grammar exactly right, but I have the gist of what they're. I know that it's a story about giving an offering, let's say, rather than taking cattle somewhere. It's sort of like learning any language. I can explain it to someone else, or I can feel like I have a basic understanding of what they're talking about. So that's kind of cool. It's almost like being a little bit of an archaeologist yourself. And I've always been interested in archaeology. I was at my minor was in geology. I originally wanted to get into earth science of some kind. So, the idea of being able to discover something, figure something out, has always interested me.
I love that. And I love how you're able to apply it in, almost everywhere you go, right? You can find some kind of little Egyptian collection. And like you said, even if you don't get every single word or something, you get the gist of what's going on and understand it. And also that you get to share it with others, right? So whoever is with you traveling, you can tell them about it too and be able to share the fun of it in that way. I love being able to do that too. I imagine sometimes those are the experiences. I think sometimes people in my program sometimes find somebody else starts following them around or something like that too, because they realize they know something, and they're like, oh, maybe this person's a tour guide or something. And they start following them around in the museum. So sometimes I hear from people who really want to learn hieroglyphs, but they're concerned that it's going to be too difficult. Sometimes they might have even tried like a book before. You mentioned you have a lot of books or something like that and found it too difficult. And I was wondering how you've been able to sort of overcome the challenge, you could say, of the fact that it is a very different language with a different script and get to where you are now with hieroglyphs.
Well, I think I forget what the first book I got was, maybe that Collier and Manley, or one of the common ones, which also helped as I was working with scribal school. I'm not trying to be an Egyptologist. I just want to say, like, when I'm going back to Egypt in January, figure go now while you can. And I want to have a little bit better idea of what I'm looking at and looking for. And I'm sure I will say, oh, there's Cleopatra's cartouche. Oh, there's an offering formula. Oh, this guy's praying to Ptah. It does make it much more fun and interesting, even going through the museum and being able to say, when I was first getting started, we went to the Cleveland Museum, and I went to the Stella, and my wife was reading the little card that goes with it, or the write-up. And I'm saying, boy, I don't know what this is, but it's got Ptah in it everywhere. It's got this god Ptah everywhere. Here's one I'm looking at. And she goes, it's a stela to the god Ptah. And I'm like, well, that's what I told you. But it's like little things like that, being able to figure something out. And I just find it interesting and very gratifying.
That's so much fun. And to think back that's really like when you were still really in the beginning too.
Yes.
With that. So now you can do so much more with that and read bigger parts, but it's already thrilling even when you read the smaller parts like that. So I know one of the things that I also hear from a lot of people who really want to learn hieroglyphs, but they're concerned about the time commitment and like, will they be able to make it fit, especially if they have big things coming up on life, like maybe a big trip and stuff like that. And I know that you in particular have like really traveled a lot while you've been in master scribes. And so I'd love to hear about during your time in master scribes, how you've used the resources and support in master scribes to help keep you continuing with making progress, even when maybe things get hectic or you take a break for a trip or something like that.
Well, I mean, the materials are always fairly close at hand. And like if we're going on a trip or something, I usually print off the assignment or whatever. I will say this group, we went to, we took a trip to Japan, and then I had some other things come up. I'm actually trying to do the scrapbook from 3 years ago in Egypt. So I know this time, like, oh, well, what did I miss when I was at this temple? What should I have seen? What should I have done? So this is the first cohort that I've been a little more disjointed on. But I mean, the information is always there, and I normally just print it out, and I don't want to say put it in a pile, but I have lots of piles of stuff that I'll eventually get to. It's pretty easy, and I like the Slack. The Slack group's really helpful because people, pop things in there about if they have a question, or sometimes even more interesting in the water cooler area. If someone finds something, like, hey, I was walking through Disneyland and they had hieroglyphs there, and they actually did say something. Other little things that you can work on or see.
I love that. And I love you pointing out the group. I think it adds so much to the program. And I do hear sometimes, including even some people who are master scribes, when they first were thinking about it, sometimes people aren't sure they really want to be in a group. Sometimes people are a little nervous about, meeting other people, or they feel like maybe they just really want one-on-one tutoring or something like that because they feel like that'll be better for them. So I was curious what you would say to somebody who's thinking about joining the group in terms of like, how did you use the group to help get you where you are now and keep making progress and get the support you need there? Because I know sometimes people are maybe worried that they wouldn't get the support they need in a group, they wouldn't get that individualized attention. So I'd love to hear what your experience has been in terms of, getting what you need to keep making progress.
Yeah, I've had really good experience with the group. There's a couple of people who've been there, as long as I have, and you get to recognize their names, and they just give you a different viewpoint on things. Like a lot of times there have been times when I posted something like, I can't tell what this glyph is. And then someone will come back and go, it's like D27 or whatever, and you look it up and you go, yeah, that was it. How did I miss that? It's just, you get the insight into someone else's way of thinking, or even if it's a phrase, a lot of times you'll see like, oh, translated to here. I didn't know what was happening. I translated further. And it just, a lot of them really seem to know a lot more than I do. And it's very good to get other people's opinions and just see their thought processes.
That's great. Yeah, I love the community thing and how you all love to share photos with each other and work together on things. And with you guys working together, you figure out so much doing that. And I'd love to hear too, like when you have questions, maybe that I feel like for me, and I've had other people say this too, that it's almost like getting double the support because you do get that support from other people in the program, right, who help you out. And then you can also get your questions answered from me too, for anything that you need from me, since we have that Slack group that I'm in as well. And also our regular coaching calls. So I was wondering what your experience has been like in terms of that. Like if you've got something you just can't figure out, for example, and you've taken it to the group, and sometimes they might help you out with figuring out, but then if not, then where do you go from there?
Well, usually you chime in at the end and help us out. I think I posted something about an inscription that was in a sarcophagus that, as I was doing this scrapbook, I found it and I go, that ought to be easy. This should be like, it should be like the offering formula. It should be like, this guy's dead and I hope he, makes it to the afterlife. And I think we all discovered it was a little more complicated, and there was a sign or two that was transposed maybe, and a sign that was missing in the poor picture that I took. So, it was kind of nice because the people in the group kind of played around with it a little bit, and then ultimately you came in and were able to give us an answer. And I think we all figured it out to our satisfaction. So there hasn't been anything that I can think of that hasn't really gone unanswered, at least.
Yeah, because I feel like if you've got questions, whether it's in the Slack group or you submit them for a coaching call and we talk about them there, a lot of times, especially if it's like things related to the curriculum or the exercises that you're doing and that. And I love getting into both of those things with you all. And of course, sometimes we get off on side topics in the in the either in the Slack group or in the coaching calls too, in terms of when somebody asks me a question that's maybe not directly related to a particular exercise or something, but maybe something about Middle Kingdom society or something about Egyptology or something like that. We have a fun time with those. So as we wind down, I know that there's going to be some people out there who are thinking about joining Master Scribes in this next round, and but they're just, they're not sure. They're trying to make that decision and they want to be confident in their decision. And I was wondering what you would say to someone like that who's maybe on the fence about joining and they're not sure and they want to come to a good place where they feel confident about it, about their decision. And I'm wondering what you would say to them.
Well, I would say give it a try. And I think, most people, if they're interested in this topic, I don't see how it can't be for them. It also gives you some structure. I know one of my problems is I have a tendency to get sidetracked a lot. So like if we're doing Shipwreck Sailor, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I should read the Shipwreck Sailor. And oh, well, if I read that, I should read the Eloquent Peasant too. And then, and then all of a sudden I've got I've downloaded 5 PDFs to read, and I forgot about the class that we were working on where I was supposed to do one sentence. So having the cohorts really does keep you focused also, and just gives you a place to start. It's hard to find a place to start when you're not an expert and you can pick something up and say, even in Eloquent Peasant, here's a good sentence to start with versus here's this whole book that I've downloaded from the internet or perhaps I bought. Now what do I do with it?
I love that. You made multiple points there that I think are really important. One is like, even if you get sidetracked, you always know exactly where to come back around to, right? Mm-hmm. You know what you're working on and you have that structure of being in a group to bring you back, whether it be because you got off on a side project or you were traveling or whatever, you have that place to come back to you. And also that you always know, and it's provided for you, like what to work on next, right? So like you said, and you don't have to try to like wade through a huge text to try and see, what bits you might be able to figure out. You've got just what you need to get started with something that fits sort of for where you are and practicing and moving on from there.
Right. And trying to learn, like even when we're learning the grammar, just trying to learn the one little chunk of grammar that we happen to be dealing with in that lesson versus, versus everything in that topic.
Right. Yeah. Because I think the thing that a lot of people tell me they run into, and I can relate to this too, is that when they try to learn hieroglyphs, it's like drinking from a fire hose. I don't know if you've had that experience maybe when you were going on your side projects, and digging in books and things like that.
The other thing I find interesting is you find mistakes, which it shouldn't be surprising because there have been copying mistakes down through the Bible and, but one of the things in the British Museum, I was like translating the canopic jars. And I'm like, I've got Wikipedia telling me who's supposed to be on what jar, and they're not right. And so then I look on the British Museum site and they have this little footnote. For some unknown reason, these 2 jars are not marked properly. And it's not that the heads were switched because they fit perfectly for what they are. So someone either intentionally did it or maybe they mistakenly did it. And it's kind of cool when you're looking at it and you're trying to figure out and you go, that's not what it says. That's a whole other mystery. Like, why did they write it that way? Why did they use this abbreviation? Why did they use this word? I expected this, and they did something a little different, or they moved the glyph a little bit to make it fit better. So it's just really cool. It's like doing puzzles or games. I don't know.
It's amazing how you were able to look at those and realize that the ones that it was supposed to be, the certain gods' names and stuff, were on different ones than you would expect. Yeah. And, then you need to dig a bit deeper and see what was going on there and stuff. And I love that. Like you said, you can find those kinds of variations or mistakes sometimes in things. And it's, like you said, it's kind of like a puzzle or a game. And when you find something, or even if it's just not a mistake, but you just figure something out, you get that like little thrill or excitement, like solving a puzzle, right? Or you get that.
Really, yeah.
It's like putting the piece, every time you put a piece in, it's like, ooh, okay, now where's the next piece? And it makes you want to keep going too, like keep that motivation. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Bob. Really appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us. And I look forward to continuing to support you and seeing where you go on your hieroglyphic journey.
Sounds great.